The buzz of my phone broke the quiet of my apartment, a sharp chime that cut through the soft hum of the refrigerator. I was curled up on the couch, flipping through a wedding magazine, circling venues with a red pen. The screen lit up with a text from my sister, Jenna, "Check your bank account." Surprise. My heart sank. Jenna's surprises were never good. I opened my banking app, fingers trembling, and stared at the balance, $0. The $28,000 I'd spent 2 years saving for my wedding, gone. A second text followed, "You didn't need all that for a boring wedding anyway. LOL. I read it again, her words blurring through the tears stinging my eyes. She laughed. My own sister had stolen everything I'd worked for, and she laughed. My name is Elise, and I'm 29 years old. Until that moment, I thought I could trust Jenna, despite her flaws. She was my only family, the one person I'd leaned on since our parents passed. But as I sat there, the magazine slipping from my lap, the weight of her betrayal crushed me. She didn't just take my money, she took my dreams, my future with Marcus, and she mocked me for it. I wanted to scream, to call her and demand answers. Instead, I set the phone down, my hand steadying. Jenna thought she'd won, that I'd crumble like I always had. She had no idea what was coming. Life before that text was a delicate balance of routine, ambition, and hope, woven together with the threads of love and sacrifice. My one-bedroom apartment in Raleigh, North Carolina, was a haven of warmth, its exposed brick walls adorned with thrift store art and string lights that cast a soft glow at dusk. The hardwood floors creaked under my steps, a comforting rhythm as I moved through my mornings. I'd wake to the gurgle of my coffee maker, its rich aroma mingling with the scent of jasmine from the potted plant on my windowsill. I'd sit at my small kitchen table, a mismatched chair creaking as I opened my laptop to review design drafts, the screen's blue light reflecting off my coffee mug. As a graphic designer for a local ad agency, my days were a whirlwind of creativity, crafting sleek logos for tech startups, tweaking color palettes for restaurant menus, and pitching campaigns in glass-walled conference rooms. I loved the challenge, the way a perfect design could make a client's eyes light up, the quiet pride of seeing my work on billboards or websites across the city. Marcus, my fiancé, was the heartbeat of my evenings. He'd come home from his freelance photography gigs, his camera bag slung over his shoulder, his dark hair tousled from a day of shooting. We'd cook dinner together in our cramped kitchen, laughing as we salvaged overcooked pasta or debated the merits of sci-fi versus rom-coms. Those moments, ordinary as they were, felt like promises of a shared life, a future built on trust and joy. We'd sit on the couch, his arm around me, planning our wedding with a mix of excitement and practicality. The botanical gardens for the ceremony, a white dress with lace sleeves, a Charleston honeymoon where we'd stroll cobblestone streets and dine at waterfront bistros. Each detail was a brick in the foundation of our forever. The wedding fund was my obsession, a testament to my discipline and dreams. Every extra dollar from a freelance project, late nights designing logos for craft breweries or flyers for local bands, went into that account. I'd skip coffee shop lattes, pack lunches, and shop secondhand to stretch my budget. Marcus contributed too, his photography gigs adding steady deposits, but I was the one who checked the balance daily, watching it grow like a gardener tending a fragile seedling. $28,000 wasn't just money, it was the string quartet I'd booked, the invitations I'd designed myself, the promise of a day that would mark the start of our life together. I'd lie awake at night, imagining the garden ceremony, Marcus's smile as I walked down the aisle, the clink of champagne glasses under fairy lights. Jenna was woven into that life, a thread I thought was unbreakable. 3 years younger, she was the wild card of our family, impulsive, charismatic, with a laugh that could light up a room. Growing up in our modest Raleigh home, we'd been inseparable, sharing secrets under the covers after our parents tucked us in, giggling over boy bands and school gossip. When our parents died in a car accident 5 years ago, I was 24, Jenna 21, and the world felt like it had shattered. We clung to each other, navigating grief and a mountain of responsibilities. I took charge, paying off their debts, selling their house, and splitting the modest inheritance. Jenna struggled, dropping out of college, bouncing between waitressing jobs and vague, creative ventures that never panned out. I didn't mind being the responsible one. I'd cover her rent when she was short, buy her groceries when her fridge was empty, even pay her phone bill to keep her connected. "You're the best, Elise," she'd say, her hazel eyes sparkling as she hugged me tight. I believed her, seeing her as my little sister, the one I'd protect no matter what. But Jenna's charm masked a growing entitlement. I'd lend her $200 for car repairs, only to see her post photos at a music festival the next day. I'd wire her $500 for rent, then hear she'd spent it on a new tattoo. Each time, she'd promise to repay me, her apologies wrapped in flattery. "I'll get you back when my big break comes," she'd say, and I'd nod, wanting to believe her dreams were just around the corner. My co-worker, Rachel, a sharp-witted copywriter at the agency, noticed it first. "Jenna's got you on a leash," she said over lunch, her fork pausing midair. "You're funding her party lifestyle." I laughed it off, insisting Jenna was just finding her way. But Marcus was less forgiving. "You're always bailing her out," he'd say, his voice gentle but firm as we washed dishes side by side. "She's gotta stand on her own sometime." I'd defend her, saying she was family, that she'd come through eventually. I was wrong. The wedding planning seemed to bridge the gap between us. When I asked Jenna to be my maid of honor, her squeal echoed through the phone. "Oh my God, Elise, I'm gonna make this epic," she said, and I laughed, picturing her stealing the dance floor. She'd text me Pinterest boards of centerpieces, rustic lanterns, wildflower bouquets, gush about dress fittings, and joke about her bridesmaid speech. "You'll be the prettiest bride, but I'll be the hottest," she'd tease, and we'd giggle until my cheeks hurt. I trusted her completely, even giving her access to the wedding fund account for small purchases, catering deposits, invitation samples. It was a joint account for convenience, a decision I made with blind faith, never imagining she'd turn it against me. I thought we were building something together, sisters planning a day of love. I didn't see the storm brewing. The signs of Jenna's betrayal crept in slowly, like shadows lengthening at dusk. In the months before her theft, her behavior shifted, subtle at first, a melody turning discordant. She'd cancel plans last minute, claiming she was swamped with a new freelance job, though she never shared details, no company name, no portfolio, just vague promises of big things. Her texts grew sporadic, less playful, more curt, as if she were dodging me. When we did meet, at a diner or my apartment, she'd steer conversations away from her life, her eyes flicking to her phone as she asked endless questions about the wedding. "How much is the venue costing?" she'd probe, twirling a straw in her soda. "That's a lot of cash for one day, huh?" I thought she was just curious, maybe envious of the stability Marcus and I had built. I didn't suspect she was calculating, measuring the weight of my savings. There were other clues, ones I dismissed as stress or coincidence. My bank app started showing odd login attempts from unfamiliar devices, alerts popping up at 2 a.m. with warnings of suspicious activity. I'd reset my password, assuming it was a glitch, but the alerts kept coming, each one a pinprick of unease. Jenna borrowed my laptop once to check her email during a visit, her fingers flying across the keys as she sat on my couch. When I glanced over, I saw a banking site, not mine, but close enough to make me pause. "Oops, wrong account," she said with a laugh, slamming the screen shut. I let it go, her smile disarming me, but the moment lingered, a splinter in my mind. She was my sister. She wouldn't hurt me. The withdrawal started small, barely noticeable at first. 2 months before the text, I saw a $50 charge from the wedding fund, labeled miscellaneous. I asked Jenna about it, thinking it was a catering sample. "Oh, I needed gas and used the wrong card, she said, her voice breezy over the phone. I'll pay it back next week. She didn't. A week later, another charge, $104, event supplies. I called her again, my tone sharper. Jenna, what's going on? You can't use the wedding fund. She apologized, claiming it was a mistake, promising to fix it. Then the amounts grew, $304, emergency car repairs, $500 for a deposit on a new apartment. Each time, she had a story, her voice dripping with sincerity. I believed her, wiring her extra cash to cover her debts, because I didn't want her to struggle. Marcus grew frustrated, his jaw tightening as we sat at our kitchen table. She's playing you, Elise, he said, his brown eyes searching mine. Those stories don't add up. I defended her, insisting she was just down on her luck. She's family, I said, my voice wavering. Rachel, too, weighed in during a coffee break at work, her bluntness cutting through my denial. She's got no job, no plan, and you're her cash cow. Wake up. I bristled, but their words planted seeds of doubt. The final clue came a week before the theft. Jenna showed up at my apartment unannounced, her makeup flawless, her hair sleek, wearing a new leather jacket that screamed money she didn't have. Got a freelance gig, she said, twirling her hair as she flopped onto my couch. Big money coming in soon. But her eyes darted away when I asked for details. What company, what project? She changed the subject, gushing about the wedding, her enthusiasm a little too bright. When I mentioned the wedding fund, checking my phone to confirm a catering payment, she left abruptly, claiming a work call. That night, I couldn't sleep, a knot tightening in my stomach. I checked the account again, and though the balance was intact, I saw a pending transfer request, $28,000, the entire amount, flagged by the bank for verification. I canceled it, my heart pounding, and changed the account password. I told myself it was a mistake, a glitch. But deep down, I knew Jenna's hand was on the trigger. The morning after Jenna's text, I woke to sunlight streaming through my window, but the warmth couldn't touch the icy ache in my chest. I sat at my kitchen table, the wedding magazine open to a dog-eared page of floral arrangements, peonies and roses, now a cruel mockery of my shattered plans. My phone buzzed again, another text from Jenna, "Relax, sis. I'll pay you back when my gig pays out. Don't be dramatic." Her casual cruelty was a blade, slicing through the last threads of my trust. She wasn't sorry. She didn't care. She thought I'd roll over, like I always had, waiting for her empty promises to magically materialize. I replayed her words, boring wedding, LOL, and felt a storm of emotions crashing over me, shock, betrayal, a searing anger that burned hotter with each passing second. But beneath it was something new, something sharp and unyielding, resolve. For years, I'd carried Jenna, excused her selfishness, convinced myself it was my duty as the older sister to keep her afloat. I'd paid her bills, forgiven her lies, believed her tears were genuine. But this wasn't a loan gone wrong or a favor forgotten. This was theft, deliberate, calculated, and mocking. She'd taken my future, the wedding I'd poured my heart into, and laughed as if it were a joke. I wasn't going to let her walk away with it. The anger was raw, but so was the guilt, a heavy weight pressing on my chest. Had I failed her? Had my generosity, my blind trust, turned her into this? I thought of our childhood, the nights we'd stayed up whispering about our dreams, mine to build a stable, beautiful life, hers to chase freedom, to live untethered by rules or responsibilities. I'd admired her spontaneity, envied her courage to leap without looking. But now I saw it for what it was, recklessness, fueled by an entitlement I'd nurtured. She'd seen my love as a blank check, my kindness as weakness. That realization hurt almost as much as the theft itself, a mirror held up to my own complicity. I called Marcus, my voice trembling as I told him everything, the texts, the empty account, Jenna's laugh. He listened, his silence heavy with anger and love. "She's gone too far this time, Elise," he said, his voice low. "We're not letting her get away with it. Whatever you need, I'm here." His support was a lifeline, anchoring me in the storm. But I knew this was my fight, a reckoning not just with Jenna, but with the part of me that had let her take so much for so long. I needed to confront the truth, about her, about myself, about the family I'd clung to despite the cracks. I opened my laptop, pulling up bank statements, text logs, anything that could trace the money. Jenna had underestimated me, assuming I'd cry and forgive, as I always had. That was her first mistake. I wasn't just going to get my money back. I was going to make sure she faced the consequences of her actions, and I'd do it with the clarity she'd never expected. By noon, I had a plan, my resolve hardening with each step. I called my bank first, my fingers steady as I dialed, reporting the unauthorized transfer. The representative, Carla, a woman with a calm southern drawl and a warmth that eased my nerves, listened as I explained the situation. "Your sister transferred $28,000 to an account in her name," Carla confirmed after pulling up the records. "It's a clear case of fraud. We'll freeze the funds pending investigation, but you'll need to file a police report to move forward." Fraud. The word was a gavel, final and unyielding. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a sisterly spat, it was a crime, deliberate and cold. I hesitated, picturing Jenna's face, her laugh, the way she'd hugged me after I'd paid her rent. Could I really turn her in? Then I saw her text again, the LOL burning in my mind. Yes, I could. I drove to the Raleigh police station, the July heat pressing against my skin as I parked. The lobby smelled of coffee and paper, a faint hum of conversation filling the air. Detective Monroe, a no-nonsense officer with graying hair and sharp blue eyes, took my statement at a cluttered desk. I showed him Jenna's texts, the smug, surprise, and boring wedding messages, along with bank alerts, screenshots of smaller withdrawals, and my call logs. "This is solid evidence," he said, his pen scratching notes. "We'll issue a warrant to trace the funds. If she spent any of it, she could face felony charges, grand theft, maybe fraud." Felony. The word hit like a stone, but I nodded, my jaw tight. "Do what you need to do," I said, my voice steady despite the churn in my stomach. As I left the station, the weight of my decision settled, not just to recover the money, but to hold Jenna accountable, no matter the cost. The turning point came that afternoon, as I sat at my kitchen table, sunlight glinting off the wedding magazine I couldn't bear to close. While reviewing old emails, I found something Jenna hadn't anticipated. Months ago, she'd forwarded me a receipt, thinking it was for wedding invitations we'd ordered together. It was for a luxury spa package in Miami, a $500 charge from the wedding fund, booked in her name with a confirmation number. I cross-checked it with my bank statements, my heart racing as I uncovered more. $200 for a designer handbag, $800 for concert tickets, $2,000 for a rental car deposit. She'd been siphoning money for months, covering her tracks with lies about emergencies. But she'd used her real name, her real email, leaving a trail as clear as daylight. Sloppy. Arrogant. That was my leverage. I called Sarah Bennett, my college friend turned civil litigation lawyer, her voice crisp and confident over the phone. We met at her downtown office, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Raleigh's skyline. I spread the evidence across her desk, texts, receipts, bank statements, screenshots. "This is theft, plain and simple," Sarah said, her eyes scanning the documents. "We can file a civil suit to recover the $28,000, and the police report strengthens our case. But here's the kicker, if she spent the money, we can go after her assets, anything bought with your funds, like that car or jewelry she's flaunting." I opened Jenna's Instagram on my phone, scrolling through posts of her in Miami, sipping cocktails by a pool, a new watch glinting on her wrist. Living my best life, the caption read. My blood boiled, but I smiled, a quiet thrill of power coursing through me. She's been showing off, I said, handing Sarah the phone. Good, Sarah replied, her lips curling. She's just handed us the rope. I didn't confront Jenna immediately. I wanted her to feel untouchable, to believe she'd outsmarted me. While the police and Sarah worked behind the scenes, I played the part of the wounded sister, texting her back, "This really hurts, but I hope you're okay. Let's talk soon." She responded with a heart emoji, no apology, no hint of remorse. Her arrogance was my fuel, each message a reminder of why I was doing this. Over the next few days, I gathered more evidence, screenshotting her Instagram posts, her in the convertible, the watch, a new pair of designer sunglasses. I cross-referenced each item with bank records, building a case as meticulous as one of my design projects. The police traced the $28,000 to a new account Jenna had opened, but she'd already spent $10,000 on the spa trip, the watch, the car deposit. The remaining $18,000 was frozen, a small victory, but I wasn't finished. Sarah filed the civil suit, demanding repayment of the full $28,000 plus $5,000 in damages for emotional distress. She requested a lien on Jenna's car and any assets purchased with my money, her legal brief as sharp as a blade. The police, meanwhile, issued a warrant for Jenna's arrest on charges of grand theft and fraud. I kept the details from Marcus, sharing only that I was pursuing legal action. "You're doing the right thing," he said, squeezing my hand as we sat on our couch, the wedding magazine now tucked away in a drawer. I nodded, but inside, I was steeling myself for the confrontation. This wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming my voice, my power, my future. I asked Jenna to meet me at Brood Awakening, a cozy coffee shop near my apartment, its wooden tables worn smooth by years of conversations. I chose a public place, knowing she'd feel safe, overconfident. I texted her, "I want to work things out. Can we talk?" She agreed, and when she arrived, she pulled up in her shiny convertible, the watch glinting on her wrist, her smile smug as she slid into the seat across from me. "I knew you'd come around," she said, stirring her latte with a flick of her wrist. "You're too soft to stay mad, Elise." I let her talk, her words dripping with entitlement, each one a nail in her coffin. "You didn't need all that money for a wedding," she went on, leaning back in her chair. "I'm starting a new life, sis. You should be happy for me. I'm finally getting somewhere." I nodded, sipping my coffee, my expression neutral. Outside, I saw Detective Monroe's unmarked car pull into the lot, right on schedule. "Jenna," I said, my voice calm, my eyes locking onto hers, "you stole $28,000 from me. You laughed about it, mocked my wedding, my dreams. Did you really think I'd let that go?" Her smile faltered, her fingers tightening around her mug. "What are you talking about?" she said, her voice rising. "I told you, I'll pay you back." Before she could say more, Detective Monroe walked in, his badge catching the light. "Jenna Harper," he said, his tone even, "you're under arrest for grand theft and fraud." Her face drained of color, her eyes darting to me as he read her rights. The coffee shop fell silent, patrons staring as Jenna stammered, "Elise, what did you do?" I stood, my voice steady. "What I had to." As Monroe led her out, a barista I recognized gave me a subtle nod, her eyes saying what words didn't, "Good for you." Jenna's convertible sat in the lot, a shiny monument to her arrogance, soon to be seized. The aftermath was a whirlwind, but one I'd braced for. Jenna was released on bail the next day, her lawyer arguing she was a first-time offender. But the damage was done. Her social media went dark, her best life posts replaced by frantic voicemails begging for mercy. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Elise," she sobbed in one. "I'll pay you back, I swear." don't do this." I didn't respond, letting her words echo into silence. Sarah's lawsuit moved forward, and the court was swift, ordering Jenna to repay the $28,000 plus $5,000 in damages. The lien on her car was approved, and the convertible was seized, sold at auction to cover part of the debt. The watch, appraised at $2,000, followed, its sale a small but satisfying victory. The remaining $18,000 was returned from the frozen account, but Jenna had to take out a loan to cover the rest, her credit score plummeting as she sank into debt. Marcus was stunned when I told him the full scope of my plan, his eyes wide as we sat at our kitchen table, a pizza box between us. "You're a badass," he said, pulling me into a hug, his warmth grounding me. But it wasn't all triumph. Some mutual friends took Jenna's side, texting me that I'd been too harsh, that family should work things out. Their judgment stung, and there were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I could have saved our relationship with stricter boundaries years ago. I dug out an old photo album, flipping through pictures of Jenna and me as kids, gap-toothed smiles, matching Easter dresses. Had I lost her then, or had she always been this way? The grief was real, a quiet ache for the sister I'd loved, but each time doubt crept in, I remembered her text, her laugh. She'd chosen this path, not me. Financially, I rebuilt with care. The returned $28,000 restored the wedding fund, but Marcus and I decided to delay the ceremony, wanting to focus on us, not a deadline. We took weekend trips, to Asheville for hiking, to Wilmington for beach walks, rediscovering the joy of small moments. I stopped answering Jenna's calls, blocking her number when she tried to guilt me with sob stories. My confidence grew, not just in confronting her, but in my work. I pitched bigger freelance projects, landing a contract with a national bookstore chain, my designs slated for their holiday campaign. Rachel, my co-worker, became a closer friend, inviting me to trivia nights at a local pub, her laughter a reminder that I wasn't alone. A year later, I stood in the botanical gardens, not as a bride, but as a guest at Rachel's wedding. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine, and fairy lights twinkled in the dusk, casting a golden glow over the guests. Marcus squeezed my hand, his ringless finger a reminder we were taking our time, building our future on our terms. My phone stayed quiet, no texts from Jenna, no pleas or excuses. She'd moved to Atlanta after the lawsuit, chasing another big break that hadn't materialized. Mutual friends said she was struggling, her reputation tarnished by the arrest, her social media a ghost town. I didn't feel joy at her downfall, only a quiet relief that she was no longer my burden. My apartment was brighter now, filled with art I'd created, bold abstracts in blues and golds, hung alongside my thrift store finds. My design business had blossomed, the bookstore contract leading to referrals from major brands. I'd started a blog about financial independence, protect your future, sharing tips for women to safeguard their money, lessons carved from my own scars. Comments flooded in from readers who'd faced similar betrayals, their stories echoing mine. One reader, a young woman named Mia, emailed me, asking for advice after her brother drained her savings. I met her for coffee, sharing my story, watching her eyes light up with determination. "You're giving me hope," she said, and I felt a surge of purpose, a new thread in the tapestry of my life. As I watched Rachel walk down the aisle, her white dress glowing under the lights, I thought about Jenna's text, the moment that had broken me open. It wasn't just about the $28,000, it was about trust, family, and the lies I'd told myself to keep her close. I'd spent years trying to be the perfect sister, believing love meant saying yes, no matter the cost. But perfection hadn't saved me. Strength had. I'd taken back my future, not with anger, but with clarity, with boundaries, with a refusal to be anyone's doormat. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you? I know what I did. I stood up, fought back, and built something better. And I'd do it again.